Welcome back to our class. Last time you were able to discuss the historical antecedents of science, technology, and society. Today, we'll be discussing about the scientific revolution and society. Now, before we proceed to our topic, I would like to ask a question. What do you think is the importance of studying scientific revolution or intellectual revolution? Please comment down your answers or write your answers on the comment section. I'll be giving you some time to do that. All right, so the scientific revolution laid the foundation for the age of enlightenment, which actually centers on the reason as the primary source of authority and legitimacy. This just simply means that during the scientific revolution, they gave so much importance on scientific method. Now, here's a bird's eye view on one side what scientific revolution is. Scientific revolution is actually known also as intellectual revolution, and this refers to series of events which led or that led to the emergence of modern science and more current scientific thinking. And this actually falls on different field of specialization. During this period, there are already different branches of science like biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics, and the like. Now, I would like to emphasize that it is also in this period where paradigm shifts occurred, which I will be further discussing in a while. It is also in this period where scientific beliefs have been widely embraced and accepted by people due to constant challenges and despite the different challenges and oppositions. It was during this period that the church is very strong. In fact, the authority during this period is the church itself. Now, any belief or particularly scientific studies or revolutions or even discoveries during this time are deemed contrary to the church. Therefore, they were considered as heretics during that time. But despite all of the oppositions from the church, scientists during this period were able to establish a lot of theories, laws, and even invention. That actually led to the advancements of science and technology, and in return, changed people's perception and belief. So there was a strong sense of scientific revolution during this time. Now, here are some of the characteristics of scientific revolution. Now, for the first part, according to Nickel, scientific revolution is actually unpredictable. During this period, scientists and a lot of philosophers, of course, try to make use of several experimentations, observations, which occurs mostly through trial and error. Of course, most of these scientific innovations are unique and they're also rapid. They were also very radical or aggressive, in creating procedures, principles, and even in studying different, in ensuring that the principles they have discovered are actually evident through several experimentations. So on top of that, the one of the characteristic of scientific revolution is that it is social in nature. Let us bear in mind that the main focus of science and technology is to become or is to answer several problems and issues in the society. So they are very keen in trying to discover uh, solutions to several problems like in food, in security, in communication, in farming, in industry, and in agriculture. And because of these advancements, there were several methods and principles established in the society which actually helped society to thrive and to evolve. Now, I would like to focus on the third point, which is um, Kuhn actually proposed a scientific revolution, or which is actually a paradigm shift. Now, when we talk about paradigm shift, please bear in mind that paradigm shift or paradigm itself is actually a framework. And this framework, just like what you see on your screen right now, which is the Kahn cycle, now this is actually a framework that contains the accepted views about certain field, including the subject of observation and measurement, and question asked about these subjects, which are actually investigated. And of course, from their investigations, results were interpreted, and they were able to identify instruments that can be used in the measurement of their principles, theories, and laws. So they are very keen in ensuring that their evidences are factual, not just factual, but they are based on facts, and that there are actually data that will support their claims. Now, the philosopher Thomas Kuhn actually who created this cycle, suggested a paradigm which includes the practices that defines a scientific discipline. So this is the entire framework, the cycle of Khan. And if you'll see, these are actually practices that defines a scientific discipline at a certain point in time. So of course, these advancements and these innovations took time, okay, before they were established. Now, these paradigms allow us to actually determine a result which belongs to a certain field or not. So the cycle or the framework of Khan, which is a paradigm shift, uh, through that they were able to identify if certain discoveries were related to certain specific fields, like let's say if it is for chemistry, for biology, for environment, for ecology, and whatsoever. Now, this paradigm shift for this particular topic will be focusing on three paradigm shifts, which includes Copernican revolution, Darwinian revolution, and of course the Freudian revolution. Now we're actually familiar, or I'm pretty sure that you're already familiar with the Copernican revolution, since you have already studied this when you were in high school. Now let's have a recall of this particular concept. Now, the Copernican revolution was actually established by Nicholas Copernicus, who was actually considered to be the father of modern astronomy. Now, during the time of Copernicus, there were actually two existing models about the solar system. The first model was actually proposed by Claudius Ptolemy, and according to Claudius Ptolemy, the Earth is the center of the solar system, and he called this model the geocentric model. However, Copernicus or Nicholas Copernicus actually proposed a different model or theory wherein it is not the Earth that is the center of the solar system, but it is actually the sun. Now, if you look at this figure, you'll see immediately the difference between the two. As I've said, geocentric model is actually the center of the universe in the geocentric model is the Earth. However, in the heliocentric model, which was proposed by Nicholas Copernicus, the center of the solar system is actually the sun. Now, if you look closely at this particular illustration or the image on the screen, you'll see that the model of Nicholas Copernicus was influenced by several intellectual persons, one of which is Tycho Brahe. Now, I would like you to bear in mind that Tycho Brahe made consistent observations which supported the heliocentric theory. And these observations were made using only a compass and a sextant. Now, Brahe cataloged over 1,000 stars, and one of the stars he observed is actually the Cassiopeia. And he also proved that comets were not just components of Earth's atmosphere, but actual objects traveling through space. Brahe also showed irregularities in the moon's orbit and discovered a new star. As I've mentioned, the star that he discovered was Cassiopeia. Now, Brahe also, please take note of this, Brahe also invented many instruments, such as the Tychonian quadrant, which were widely copied and led to the invention of observational equipment, which actually led also to the discovery of telescopes. Now, Tycho Brahe and Johannes Kepler, I think, were friends or they were colleagues during that time. And Johannes Kepler joined hand with Tycho Brahe, and they actually discovered that planets move in elliptical orbits, and the sun is the center. If you could recall in your science in your high school, the sun plays a very important role in the gravitational pull of the Earth. Remember the theory of Sir Isaac Newton, the law of gravitation? This was actually influenced by the sun because of its magnetic pull. Because of the sun, the planets are held in place in their orbit and they are not crashing or clashing to each other. So the sun really plays an important role in, of course, keeping the orbit of the planets and at the same time maintaining the different gravity of different planets. Now, moving on, we have Darwinian Revolution. Now, Darwinian Revolution, of course, we know that the father of evolution is Charles Darwin, and he published the book on the origin of species, which emphasizes that organisms are the result of evolution. And in his theory, natural selection, according to him, the organism actually adapt to the environment, to the changes in the environment, and evolve in order for them to survive. So part of the natural selection is also the theory of part of the natural selection is the theory of evolution, where he theorized that species of organisms arise and develop through the natural selection of small inherited variations. So as the environment change, these organisms adapt and several changes manifest onto them. One typical example that is usually cited by several books is, of course, the giraffe. According to theories, the giraffe evolved before. Giraffes were known to have short neck. I mean, they don't have that long neck feature that we see from the giraffes today. According to records or according to scientists, because of the changes in the environment and because of the need for them, of course, to eat and to reach for their food, they were able to develop long necks. On top of that, one theory also, and actually it's supported by claims right now, according to scientists, they've discovered that snakes actually had feet back then. So they can stand on their feet and that they are four-legged. However, because of the changes in the environment and because of the situations where they need to adapt to their environment and therefore lost the ability to walk and eventually their feet shrank. Now, another particular example is human beings. Now, we human beings have this tailbone. According to the theory of Charles Darwin, we originated from chimpanzees, no, from monkeys, and as time passed by, we evolved and developed. No, according to records, early human beings are hairy, no, because of the environment, because of the climate, or because of the temperature, perhaps. And as you can see, the jaws of the human beings back then were big, and the brain of the early human beings or Homo sapiens, for example, are kind of small compared to our brain right now, or yeah, kind of small compared to our brain right now. But because human beings started to think and started to discover, particularly fire and the use of several stones to hunt, no, human beings were able to adapt and become much more logical, or we tend to have this reasoning skill already. So the Darwinian evolution actually emphasizes um, two main points. But I want to emphasize first, and please take note of this, that the natural selection often describes survival of the fittest, where fitness refers to the ability to survive and reproduce. Now, just like Copernicus, please bear in mind that Darwin's theory of evolution also met resistance during the society or during the early period. Now, critics see the theory of evolution to be contradictory to the church's teachings that the source of life is actually God, no? A supernatural being. The theory of natural selection emerged at a time when most of the population believed and accepted the biblical version of Earth's creation. So this caused a lot of conflict among people. And while some believe that the theory explained the origin of life, please take note that the religious and faithful contradicts it. Now, this caused debate between science and religion. So that's the actually I don't know if that's the start, but I definitely am sure that back then the science and religion are always arguing. So back to natural selection. As you can see on the screen, there are two main points of the theory of evolution. One is that all life on Earth is connected and related to each other. And of course, second, the diversity of life came about because of the modification in populations that were driven by natural selection. A commonly cited example is the Galapagos finches. Now, as you can see on the screen, no, the early Galapagos finches have bigger beaks. And according to studies or according to researchers, they actually need these beaks in order to crack some foods or their source of food. But as time passes by and as the environment changes, they tend to search for fruits or insects and other sources of food, which doesn't need or require bigger beaks. Now, that's the reason why the Galapagos finches now have smaller beaks compared to those in the earlier times. And this claim actually supports the theory of natural selection by, of course, Charles Darwin. And the last one is the Freudian Revolution. We are all familiar with the Freudian Revolution. This was actually um, postulated by Sigmund Freud. And one of the most common or most famous development which was created by Freud is actually the theory of psychoanalysis. Now, psychoanalysis, please bear in mind, is a scientific method of understanding inner and unconscious conflicts embedded within personalities. That's why Freud was able to conceptualize now three important concepts: the ego, and the superego. Now, I would like you to remember when we talk about id, this is more of the pleasurable principle. So it adapts the pleasurable principle. Now, according to Sigmund Freud, we develop this personality, this id, when we were still babies, because one of the features of babies are, of course, sucking milk, sleeping, then again eating, sleeping, resting, and whatsoever. So we tend to focus more on the id during that time. Now, as we grow, when we are in the elementary period, we now develop the second one, which is ego. Now, according to Sigmund Freud, this is actually the reality principle. Okay, the ego balances the id and the superego. And since I've mentioned it's more of the reality principle, according to Freud, it is the ego which actually needs to be developed in order for us to become a well-functioning individual. Now, the last one is the superego. So we have the id, which is the pleasure, which holds the pleasure principle, and then the second one, which is the ego, which holds the reality principle, and the last one is the superego, which holds the conscience principle. So it's more of obeying your conscience and knowing what is right and wrong. Now, if we develop too much our superego, the tendency is that we will become very judgmental because of that sense of righteousness. But when we tend to overdevelop our id, what will happen is that we will become very impulsive. And that's just one of the attribute that we could develop now, being impulsive. Like, for example, when you go to groceries and when you're just about to buy, let's say, a milk, but when you try to roam around the grocery, you were able to see some food or perhaps some items that you really like, and without even thinking, you tend to buy all of that. So that's impulsive buying, and we tend to develop that when we focus more on the id. So another one or another concept that Freud proposed, aside from the psychoanalytic theory and the id, ego, and superego, we also have here the the iceberg theory, which Freud actually used the iceberg to illustrate what's on our mind. According to Sigmund Freud, we have the conscious, the subconscious, or the preconscious, and the unconscious. Now, according to Sigmund Freud, if you really want to discover who you really are, you should focus on your unconscious mind because it holds 95% of your belief, of your long-term memory, which also includes your past experiences, your traumatic experiences, your phobias, your fear, and your emotion. But when we talk about the conscious mind, these are actually short-term memories. These are the things that you can actually remember the things that you have just, let's say, attended to. For example, here in our class, we consider this to be part of your conscious mind, because this is actually a working scenario or a working situation. You're learning. And particularly the conscious mind holds information that you can easily access. Let's say, for example, the name of your family members, the name of your teachers this semester. So all of those belong to the conscious mind. So if we try to compare it to the iceberg, you'll see that um, from when we look at the surface, okay, you'll see that the ice is actually quite smaller compared to what's underneath. And according to Sigmund Freud, when we try to dig the unconscious, we'll be able to discover more about ourselves. So, but the reality is it's quite hard to access the unconscious mind, because the tendency of human beings to let's say hide no the things that are unpleasant, let's say memories or experiences. So ang tendency ng ating brain kasi, kapag meron tayong mga traumatic experiences, like let's say abuse, no, physical, verbal, or sexual abuse, no, the mind, we cope. No, our coping mechanism is that we try to hide this information, these experiences in our unconscious mind. However, please bear in mind that despite being buried in the unconscious mind, it will still surface somehow, no, through actions and behaviors or responses or reactions that are uh, that are observed by the people around us, and most of the time we become unconscious of these feelings, of these behaviors, because of the unconscious mind, because of the things that we have kept, no, in our unconscious mind. So these are all about the third module. These are the topics under the third module. Again, so we were able to discuss scientific revolution and the paradigm shift by Kuhn. And the three important paradigm shifts that we magnified earlier is the Copernican Revolution, the Darwinian Revolution, and the Freudian Revolution. So that's the end of Module 3. Thank you very much for listening, and stay tuned for more updates regarding our next topic. So I'll see you next time. Bye bye.